On the 9th of January, while we had the newspapers splashing front page advertisements on what was called the Bharati Pravasi Divas, there was another report which was, of course, in the inside page, which said that 9 miners in Assam, in a particular district of Assam, were trapped, and one of them had escaped with his life intact. The report further hinted that the lives of the others, 8 of them, 7 of them from Assam and 1 from West Bengal, their lives were in danger, and one couldn't be sure whether they were alive. This was the bare report. Mercifully, the paper that I read gave some details the next day about the fate of these remaining miners. 8 of them, but they also hinted from various sources that the number actually trapped was about 30, but some managed to escape. And one can imagine that they would have escaped into some form of invisibility, because this type of coal mining, which is also called rat hole mining, is illegal and has been declared illegal from 2024 by the National Green Tribunal or whatever. So they wouldn't want to be there and get their names publicized, therefore they would have escaped not only with their lives but from the police. So today's paper says that all the various agencies are there, ONGC and the army and every possible agency is there on the spot, trying to save the lives of these 8 miners. We'll see how it is, because one thing I must tell you is that most of the vernacular papers didn't notice it at all, because there is so much of distraction that is going on. Some created by their own activities, but some created by the government. So the citizen hardly comes to know some of these realities. My mind therefore went back to a very dramatic event on December 6, 2023. I said dramatic because the whole world's attention was on a construction site in Uttarakhand. Cameras were there, everything was there. It was so dramatic because a number of construction workers were trapped under the rocks, and 17 days had passed without rescue. So it was most dramatic. There were photographers all over the place and everything. They were waiting and waiting. And then the government chief minister, or whoever it was, most likely the chief minister would have said, yes, we are bringing them out by this afternoon, by this evening, because oxygen, their publicity is their oxygen. And so this was going on, but nothing happened. They had brought in a foreigner, an expert. I think it was from Texas. And of course, the whole operations were being guided by a lieutenant general or a major general. And both of them consulted with each other. And if I remember right, the general said, "Bring in the rat hole miners." And suddenly everyone woke up. Who are the rat hole miners? There they are, and under the earth, not knowing whether they would be rescued, a whole number of them. And suddenly the general says, "Bring in the rat hole miners." And so they came to the spot. Thin men, because this is the mark of rat hole mining. You have to be thin, all of them. They, by their profession, had to crawl through a pipe or any space of this width, which I reckon would be about 2 feet 6 inches or so. These people, called by this derisive name of rat hole miners, had to crawl and crawl and crawl their way through the pipes and then for rescue. So this dramatic appearance of a set of people, not many really, I think it was 6 or 8 of them, led by one Munna Kidwai, was there. For a few minutes, the spotlight was on him and his men. And so they crawled and crawled, because what has happened was that no drilling machine could be used anywhere, because it would mean that the whole thing would come down. That's the advice they got, that you can't use all these heavy machines anymore. And the life of those miners was in the hands of Kidwai, these rat hole miners, and his men. Literally. Why? Because not only were they crawling and crawling nearer the spot where life was still there, they were also crawling in such a way that they could extend a hand to these miners, trapped construction workers, not miners. And so they did reach them and pulled out these unfortunate construction workers one by one. With their hands, took them out one by one and saved all of them. The camera shifted to Kidwai, Munna Kidwai, for a minute. And then he was asked something, and he said, "You will forget us soon, because we come in only when there is a rescue act. My people, my wife and children say that I should stop in this profession. What else have I got? I have to take care of my children and my wife. I didn't go to school, neither do they now, because what I get from here is very little." And then the paper added that they were getting, whenever this emergency comes, or whenever there's an opportunity for these rat hole miners, they get about 400 rupees a day for the few days that they work. So, though Kidwai said that they would be forgotten, they were forgotten sooner than he imagined. The moment the rescued were out, the cameras and everything shifted to them, and in a couple of hours, the government came out with a kind of notification, bringing out the names of all those who made this daring operation successful. And so, of course, there was the credit given also to the chief minister and some of the politicians and the army and the other officials and the others and everybody else. But there was no mention at all of these rat hole miners. As someone remarked at that time, they had no identity. They were, after all, rat hole miners, and they would soon be forgotten like rats. This is not only what happened, this is the economic reality of rat hole mining. And according to reports, there are about 400 to 600 illegal mines that work in those areas which are rich in this black gold. And all of these mines have about 30 to 40 working. That would, in a very rough estimate, mean that about 4,000 4,000 workers are doing what is called rat hole mining. And then they are forgotten because, after all, it is an illegal activity. I remember the general in charge of the other operation at Uttarkashi said something very important. Rat hole mining may be illegal, but the talent and the expertise of these people, that is not illegal. That is how they said. He said, my point is simply this. Please forget for a moment the illegality and things like that. Laws have their ways. But they are workers who are the victims or the outcomes of an economic situation. No escape from that. For if there were an imaginary condition, I use the word were, if there were opportunities and jobs in the formal sector, they would go in for that, definitely. But there are no jobs in the formal sector. It is already evident, even from the government reports, that manufacturing has played a role. There is nothing good happening in manufacturing. So everything is in the informal sector. And the informal sector, that kind of very loose term, has a lot of exploitation there. In other words, those who put the money in call the tune, and the wages and the conditions. This is deeply exploitative. Come back to this, that here is a situation, I'm talking about this rat hole miners, that go there into these pits. They're called informal mining, but they are actually pits that they have dug with their hands, and all over the place. These people, these workers, they have their families. They are in this plight because of an economic situation. They require to be noticed. I am not prescribing anything. I am in no way giving something prescriptive. What I say is descriptive. Let them be noticed. Let them not be forgotten. Because, say what you will, when all this, the dust, if I might call it, and the publicity, of these 9 miners in Assam, whose lives, they are still there, down in the pits. When all that is over, whichever way, we pray that the lives of those 8 people will not be taken away by this harsh reality. When they all come out and the press and everybody leaves, we still have the economic reality of no jobs in the formal sector, and they will continue to seek some jobs wherever they can in their area. And the contractor and the politician will be in league with each other, promoting these rat hole mines. Have a thought for these workers. Let them not disappear from our radar, from our own consciousness. They are there before everybody. We cannot forget them, these workers. In this sector alone, about maybe 3,000 or 4,000 of them.